Hi everyone, my name's Ryan. Today I'm going to be discussing virtual reality and augmented reality and the uses of these technologies for public libraries. So without further ado, let's dive in. So the first of these technologies is augmented reality. What augmented reality is a technology that allows users to enhance their world experience. So for example, Pokemon Go is an application that was used on iPhone a few years back that users could enhance their gaming experience by using their smartphones to capture Pokemon by placing the camera in a field of view. And while a Pokemon wasn't there in real life, on the phone they were able to see it. So these applications have other uses other than gaming. So for example, you could have an educational augmented reality app or program that you use to show different historical sites within a city. So unlike augmented reality, virtual reality is an immersive experience. So at this point, you're not just pointing a smartphone or another device at the world and enhancing it with some type of technology on that phone. You have usually a headset that takes you into a three-dimensional world with a 360-degree view and puts you in a real-world simulated environment. So how do virtual reality and AR technologies work? Virtual reality immerses users into a 360-degree 3D experience with a headset. AR technologies works by enhancing the user's experience around them. So this is how these technologies work, but how can we start implementing them into our communities? The following video shows how MIT and LEGO collaborated to work on urban design. Some of these principles can be used for public libraries to integrate these types of technologies into their current programs that they offer within their community library.
Humans have always been social animals. Our ancestors used signals to communicate, to form into groups, to hunt, to protect themselves, to feed the young, to have fun. So when we look at actual groups and measure them, what we find is that the most important effect is, does everybody contribute more or less equally? That is almost 50% of the performance of the group. People often ask me, what is it that I'm supposed to do to be part of an effective team? What are sort of the bullet points to remember? The first one is communicate frequently. Keep everybody in the loop. The second one is you have to have everybody engaged, which means you have to talk your share and listen to everybody else. And you should acknowledge when somebody says something interesting. Also, communication is not just about the strategy and the topic, it's about building social ties, about understanding the context. So you need social communication to complement the business communication. And the final one is you need to understand the context of your work group, which means you need to talk to the rest of the people in the organization too. Over time, we've been so successful that we've seen the rest of MIT convert to this. One of the most interesting groups around here is the Changing Places group, and they're interested in how do you build architecture to support more innovation. We have to become more innovative to deal with big challenges like pollution and global warming. And what you find is by changing the way the neighborhood runs, you can make the neighborhood work a lot better.
So how much does it cost? The cost of these types of headsets for virtual reality range from anywhere from around $150 to at the higher end of $700 or $800 per headset. So you can see here that the Canadian cost in dollars for a Samsung Gear VR headset is around $200, but you can see a higher end version for the HTC Vive at $700. So it really depends what you're going to be using it for. AR technologies are a little bit cheaper right now, if you have a smartphone device already. So it would be a bring your own device type of technology. Patrons can come into the library with their own devices and perhaps download AR apps that the library provides. So who's doing this already? So right now McGill Library is implementing VR and AR technologies within their academic library setting. Students and faculty can use these types of technologies for gaming experiences, for research, and for other opportunities within the school environment. And it's not just McGill that's doing this. Public libraries across Canada, such as the Toronto Public Library, Brockville Public Library, and the University of Calgary Library, are implementing these types of technologies already. There are many libraries already implementing these, and there are still some who haven't. So we're kind of at a crossroads between whether this technology is going to be used and how it's going to be used within the public library setting. So as previously mentioned, Some potential uses for this technology include anything from urban development to gaming to business and other types of personal use. AR technologies can be used when giving different types of city tours or even for planning and municipal development. Virtual reality can be used for arcade-type experiences that immerse people into a new world. This can all work together to create a more enhanced patron experience when visiting a public library. So let's assume that we have this technology in our library now. What are we going to be doing? How are we going to test it with staff and with patrons? So similar to Lincoln Ping University Library, VR and AR tech would require a continuous systematic in-house usability testing. So what this means is maybe monthly, perhaps bi-weekly, we would test the technology to make sure it still works. So how would staff and patrons benefit? Well, both staff and patrons would benefit in a lot of similar ways. Staff can use the technology as well for gaming and for entertainment, but staff members can also use it to keep track with one another, touch base, and communicate in meetings across branches or across different cities. Staff members can use AR and VR technologies for conferences, professional development, and other uses that they find necessary within the library setting. So what are some potential issues with this type of tech? One thing that does come to mind, borrowing and lending agreements would have to be revised for patrons. So currently right now, if a patron wants to borrow a computer within the library, such as a Chromebook or an HP laptop, they have to agree to a digital lending agreement. They have to sign it, and we keep that on file. Another issue is theft, missing items, and damaged items with wear and tear over time. So these items are quite expensive, and we would have to have some type of system in place to keep them in good use for patrons to use. Another issue is that some patrons might not be able to use this technology or have difficulty learning this technology. So to accommodate these patrons, we can have different programs such as one-on-one tech help to familiarize this type of technology for everyday users. Sometimes things go wrong. For that, we have troubleshooting. So a lot of the troubleshooting techniques that we would use for VR and AR are similar to the ones that we use for everyday computers already. So for virtual reality, the first thing we might want to do is check to ensure the lenses are clean, that the headgear settings are correct, or we may have to reconfigure the application for the technology to work properly. For these types of deeper troubleshooting questions, we may want to consult with the product manual for further instructions. AR technology is also quite similar. We would have to make sure that the Wi-Fi or data signal is working properly, check the AR app is properly installed, or turn the device on and off or reinstall an app if the app crashes. So all of these types of things will still continue to happen. Problems will still continue to exist. Just because the technology is changing does not mean that maintenance issues go away. And that brings us to our next point, maintenance. So maintenance for these types of technologies would also have to change. So IT will have to become familiar with these products and these technologies within the library. Every month there may have to be some type of regular update or maintenance. This can either be done by one of the library service associates at SPL, or it could be done by an IT professional, depending on what that requires. These types of regular checks have to continue to ensure that the devices run smoothly for patron and staff use. As previously mentioned, not all patrons will know how to use this technology. For this, we have a plan. When patrons enter the library, we may have a marketing campaign to make them more aware of these technologies. We can show them different types of printed material or a brochure that they can take. If they wanted to learn more, they could also come in and request one-on-one technology help with one of our staff members to teach them more about these technologies and have them play with them and use them themselves. We can also run programs and presentations to familiarize the public with these types of new emerging technologies. Seminars, presentations such as this will be helpful for patrons to familiarize themselves and learn these new technologies that the library offers. Just as everything else will have to be updated, staff policies will also have to be updated. Staff policies can be updated by holding monthly meetings to discuss how VR and AR technology has impacted patrons. This wouldn't require too much work, as these types of issues can be integrated into our already working model of meetings within the library. We can outline policies for programs and new technologies, and also update our digital device lending agreement for patrons wishing to borrow these technologies, either within or outside of the library. In closing, these are some of the basic points that we touched on today. So virtual reality and augmented reality have already been implemented in public libraries across the country. VR and AR technologies are great to enhance patron experience and can be used for entertainment, business, and education. These new technologies will continue to become more popular as they become fully integrated into library spaces. It is important to keep in mind new troubleshooting, maintenance, and policy concerns pertaining to VR and AR technologies. So staff, IT, all these different types of people will have to come together to continue to improve these technologies moving forward. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for listening and have a great day.